The conference room at Harrison Technologies felt unusually cold that morning. Whether it was the crisp October air seeping in through the massive windows or the frosty tone in Diane's voice, the chill seemed to seep into every corner of the room. "As you all are aware," she began, standing at the head of the table in her sharp suit, "Richard's death 2 weeks ago was a tragic loss. But business must proceed." She paused, offering a smile that could have passed for sympathy. "Which is why I'm announcing some immediate changes to the leadership structure." I sat quietly, watching her performance. Diane, my late father's widow, was skilled at commanding attention. At 45, just 15 years older than me, she looked more like a high-powered executive than the mourning widow of a tech mogul. "According to Richard's will," she continued, holding up a thick legal document, "I now have control over Harrison Technologies. All shares, voting rights, and executive decisions are now under my authority." The board shifted uncomfortably. They had known my father for decades, watched me grow up in these halls, and saw me rise within the company. Now they were being told that Diane, who had been married to my father for only 3 years, would take charge. "My name is Alexander Harrison," I spoke up. "At 30, I've dedicated my life to preparing for this role. My father built Harrison Technologies from nothing, and he trained me to lead it." But all of that changed when Diane entered the picture. Diane swiftly interrupted, her voice cutting through mine. "I'll be implementing new leadership, starting with our new CTO, James Peterson." A tall man in his 30s stood up, offering a polite smile. I felt my stomach turn. James Peterson, Diane's brother, the same man who had been fired from 3 companies for ethical violations. Diane turned her gaze to me, her smile tight. "Thank you for your service, but your position as head of operations is no longer necessary." The room went still. They were all waiting for my reaction, but I simply closed my laptop. "Of course, Diane. Whatever you say." Her smile faltered, taken aback by my calmness. She had expected anger, tears, anything that might make me look unhinged. What she didn't know, except for Marcus Chen, my best friend and head of it, was that I had been preparing for this moment for months. It all started 3 months ago when my father fell ill. The doctors called it rapid pneumonia, but something didn't feel right. Dad had always been in good health. Then, after a trip with Diane, he could barely breathe. The night before he passed, he called me into his office. Weak, barely able to stand, he'd insisted I watch the old security footage. "Ali," he said, using my childhood nickname. "Look at the feed from last Tuesday. The old system, not the new one Diane installed." The next morning, he was gone. It took Marcus and me 2 weeks to decrypt the old footage. Diane thought she had replaced it, but my father was always cautious. The hidden camera in his office had captured everything. Diane and James tampering with his inhaler and discussing the will, how to take control, how to push me out. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Everything's ready. They just tried to access the main servers." I smiled and grabbed a family photo from my desk. Diane might have inherited my father's shares, but she didn't have his knowledge. He built fail-safes into the company's systems that only a Harrison could access. "Miss Harrison?" a security guard asked politely. "Mrs. Harrison wants you out of the building within the hour." I nodded and gathered my things. "No problem. Please tell Diane I wish her the best of luck. She'll need it." As I left the building, I could hear the chaos begin, phones ringing, people shouting. I stepped into the elevator just as Diane's voice echoed down the hall, demanding someone fix the issues. I called Marcus from my car. "How bad is it?" "Total lockdown," he said, trying to contain his excitement. "Every system now requires Harrison biometric authentication. Diane's trying to bypass it, but Dad's proprietary tech is locked down. Only family knows how to work it." "I'm done," I said. "How long until they figure it out?" "Hours. They can't even access project files without Harrison DNA confirmation." I started the car, thinking about the video evidence stored safely in multiple locations, the forensic audit I'd quietly arranged, and the private investigators tracking Diane and James with every move. "Keep an eye on them," I told Marcus. "Let me know when they start panicking." "Where are you headed?" he asked. "I'm going to see Dad's lawyer. He'll want to see this footage." At Bradbury and Associates, I met Howard Bradbury, my father's lawyer for over 30 years and one of the few people who never trusted Diane. "Alexandra," he said, standing as I entered. "I've been expecting you." I set my laptop on his desk and plugged in a USB drive. "I need you to see something, Howard. It's about the night before Dad died." We watched the footage in silence. Diane and James entering my father's office, tampering with the inhaler, discussing the will. That's not all, I said, opening another file. This is from when Dad first fell ill. The footage showed Diane sneaking into his office late at night, the timestamp matching precisely when his symptoms began. Howard rubbed his eyes and took off his glasses. Your father knew something was wrong, he said quietly. The day before he passed, he called me about changing his will. He was supposed to come in, but he never made it. I checked my phone. Another text from Marcus, systems still locked. Diane's called in 3 tech teams, but none can break through. Howard reached for his phone. This video, combined with the suspicious death, we can petition the court to freeze all assets. How long will that take? Normally weeks, but with Judge Morrison's help. He dialed the judge's office. I may be able to get an emergency hearing. Just then, my phone rang. Diane's name flashed on the screen. I showed it to Howard, who nodded. Put it on speaker. Diane's voice came through, tight with barely restrained anger. What have you done to the systems? Me? I responded innocently. I was escorted out, remember? Don't play games, she snapped. Nothing is working. Even James can't access the core servers. Have you tried Dad's biometric access? A long silence. You know that's not possible. Funny how that happened right after you swapped his inhaler. The silence was deafening. Be careful, Alexandra, she warned. You can't prove anything. Actually, I said, glancing at Howard, I can. The hidden camera caught everything. There was another pause, and then Diane spoke, her voice cold. What do you want? Meet me at the office in 1 hour. Bring James. Don't bother trying to delete anything. You can't access it, remember. After hanging up, I turned to Howard. Will you have something by then? He nodded. Judge Morrison is clearing her schedule. She wants to see the video evidence. Back at Harrison Technologies, the atmosphere was tense. I walked through the lobby, feeling the weight of the board's gaze on me as news of the system lockdown spread. I entered the main conference room to find Diane and James pacing. Her immaculate hair was slightly out of place, and her designer attire seemed to show signs of strain. Fix this, she barked immediately. Whatever you've done, undo it now. I took a seat at the head of the table, her spot from earlier. I haven't done anything, I responded calmly. My father created the company's security system himself. Only a Harrison could access the core tech. I'm a Harrison, she smiled. No, I replied, my tone unwavering. You're the woman who married my father 3 years ago. The one who meddled with his medication and swapped his inhaler. The one who tried to take everything he built. James stepped forward, his anger evident. You're making dangerous claims, Alexandra. Really? I pulled out my phone and brought up the video. Let's watch something interesting. Their faces drained of color as they watched footage of their own incriminating actions. By the time it ended, Diane collapsed into a chair, her face pale. It's over, I said, standing up. The police are on their way. Judge Morrison is reviewing the evidence right now. Every account will be frozen, every asset locked down. You can't prove the inhaler was tampered with, James said quickly. It's just circumstantial. I smiled. Actually, I can. Dad kept the inhaler. I found it hidden in his desk, just as he said. The lab results came back this morning. The chemical composition was altered. Diane abruptly stood, grabbing her purse. This is ridiculous. I'm leaving. No, a voice interrupted. Detective Sarah Chen, Marcus's sister, appeared in the doorway with 2 uniformed officers. Diane Peterson, James Peterson, you're under arrest for the suspected murder of Richard Harrison. As they were escorted away in handcuffs, I watched their empire crumble. Diane shot me a glare full of malice as they dragged her out. You'll regret this, she hissed. No, I replied softly. I'll regret not seeing it sooner, not saving him sooner. The weeks that followed passed in a blur, legal battles, police inquiries, and corporate restructuring. The evidence against Diane and James was irrefutable. Video footage, a tampered inhaler, and forensic accountants exposed months of financial manipulation. They had set up shell companies to siphon off Harrison Technologies' assets. The will Diane had forged to inherit everything was riddled with inconsistencies, including a shaky signature that didn't resemble Dad's usual confident strokes. One morning, about a month later, I sat in Dad's office, now mine, sorting through his personal items. Marcus knocked on the door, holding a tablet. The last of the system locks have been removed, he said, sitting down. Everything's back to normal. The board reinstated you as CEO. I picked up a framed photo from Dad's desk, one of us at my MIT graduation, both smiling at the camera. Have you seen the latest from the investigation? Marcus asked with a sigh. Yeah, the toxicology reports confirmed it, I said. They'd been poisoning him for months, even before the final inhaler switch. The pneumonia was just a cover. It hit me hard, as it did every time I thought about Dad's last months. How he must have known something was wrong, but couldn't prove it. How he fought to protect the company even as his body betrayed him. The preliminary hearing is tomorrow, Marcus said softly. Sarah says the prosecution's case is solid. They're both facing significant prison time. I set the photo down and gazed out at the city skyline. Did you know Dad came to see you the week before he died? I asked. Marcus froze. He did. He wanted to make sure the old security system was still running alongside the new one Diane installed, I said. He had a feeling we might need it. He knew, I whispered. He knew what they were planning, but couldn't stop it in time. So he left us the tools to expose them. The next day, I sat in the courtroom, watching Diane and James enter in handcuffs. Gone were their designer clothes, replaced by prison jumpsuits. Diane didn't look at me, but James shot me a look of pure hatred. The prosecution presented a compelling case. The slow poisoning, the forged will, and the planned corporate theft. Howard testified about Dad's last attempt to change his will, an appointment he never made it to. When it was my turn to testify, I addressed the jury directly, not just as a CEO, but as a daughter who lost her father to greed and betrayal. The night before he died, I told them, my voice steady. My father used his last moments of clarity to ensure the truth came out. He didn't think of himself. He thought of justice, of protecting what he built, of making sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. The hearing ended with Diane and James being held without bail. Their trial was scheduled for 3 months later, though their lawyers were already discussing plea deals. Back at Harrison Technologies, I focused on rebuilding what they had tried to destroy. The company took a hit when the scandal broke, but our core technology and loyal clients remained intact. I promoted Marcus to CTO. He had more than earned it. Together, we implemented new security protocols, ensuring nothing like this could happen again. One evening, as we worked late, Marcus looked up from his computer. You know what's ironic? He said. If they had just waited, Diane probably would have inherited a significant portion. Naturally. Your dad wasn't vindictive, I replied. No, Marcus said. But they weren't willing to wait. They wanted everything, no matter the cost. 6 months later, I stood in the courtroom again, this time to hear the verdicts. Diane and James had taken plea deals to avoid longer sentences. They were each looking at 15 years, plus restitution. As they were escorted away, Diane finally looked at me. The hatred was still there, but beneath it was something else. Defeat. She had lost everything, her freedom, her reputation, the wealth she murdered for. That night, I visited Dad's grave for the first time since the funeral. The autumn air was crisp as I approached the headstone. We did it, Dad, I whispered, placing fresh flowers by his name. They can't hurt anyone else now, and Harrison Technologies is stronger than ever. A week later, I called a company-wide meeting. Every employee, from top executives to maintenance staff, gathered in the main auditorium. Harrison Technologies was built on innovation, integrity, and trust, I began. My father didn't just build a company, he built a family. Recent events tested that foundation, but we've emerged stronger. I announced a new profit-sharing program, increased benefits, and a scholarship fund in Dad's name for underprivileged students interested in technology. My father believed in building things that last, I continued. Not just technology, but relationships, trust, legacy. We lost him too soon, but his vision, his values live on in every person in this room. The applause was deafening. I felt a profound sense of responsibility and pride. Later that evening, I found myself looking at Dad's photo again. I wish you could see it now, Dad, I whispered. Everything you built, everything you protected, it's all growing stronger. And I promise I'll keep building on your legacy. Marcus appeared in the doorway. We're presenting the new security patents tomorrow. I smiled, setting down the photo. Ready. Dad always said the best revenge isn't just winning, it's thriving. As we walked out together, I thought about everything that had happened. Diane and James had tried to steal not just a company, but a legacy. They had underestimated the security systems Dad put in place, and more importantly, the loyalty he inspired. In the end, their greed had cost them everything. While what they tried to destroy, Harrison Technologies had emerged stronger than ever. Dad's last gift hadn't just been the footage. It was the trust he placed in me, the lessons he taught me, the strength he knew I'd need to protect everything he had built. Standing in the lobby, looking at the company logo shining bright against the night sky, I felt his presence more strongly than ever. We had won, not just by exposing their crimes, but by staying true to his vision, his values, his legacy. And that was the greatest victory of all. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Stay stunned.